Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a video and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today, I'm privileged to welcome not just a very successful professional from the corporate world, but an adventurer, Dhruv Bogra. Dhruv, welcome to the show.
Hello, Ashutosh. Very happy and privileged to be here on your show as well.
Thank you. Dhruv is the country manager India for an Australian brand called Forever New. He's worked for Adidas, bestseller retail, Titan, and Levi Strauss. He's an author of a book titled Grit, Gravel, and Gear, and we'll talk about this. And he's traveled solo on a bicycle across 15,000 kilometers across 10 countries. So, Dhruv, tell me, what would you say are three key milestones in your life or your career?
I would say definitely, I've been in the retail industry now for about 25 years.
Mhm.
And I would say that one of the companies that really laid the foundation for me in retail and got me all passionate about fashion was Levi Strauss.
Mhm.
So I started with them in 96. Of course, prior to that, I'd already put in 4 or 5 years, first with Tata Tea and then with FMCG companies like
Mhm.
L'Oreal's Garnier division and 3M.
Mhm.
Each of these companies was pivotal in my career. So it's very,
Correct.
unfair to say that Levi's was a milestone because possibly in my career, Tata Tea was the first one.
Mhm.
But from a retail fashion industry perspective, Levi's was the one that was really passionate. The whole concept of how a brand is built,
Mhm.
what is brand architecture, what is the soul of a brand. I think
Mhm.
uh, I was very young in my career at that point in time, but the
Mhm.
concept of the soul of the brand has stuck with me since then. And no other brand comes close to encapsulating that concept
Correct.
like Levi's. And the second was, of course, Titan, because Titan gave me an opportunity to head a very large retail business
Mhm.
and actually take it to the next level. So they gave
Mhm.
me that opportunity, that platform to create something new and beautiful. And I would say a very big milestone in my career right now is Forever New.
Okay.
It's a young brand. It's not a very big company. It's a small
Mhm.
company, but making a big splash in a very aggressive, very competitive fashion space.
Mhm. Okay.
So yes, there are tremendous
Fantastic.
learnings, and that's why I call them milestones because the learnings are very deep.
Very interesting. So, Dhruv, now let's talk about Forever New. Tell me about this brand and the range of products that you have.
Well, Forever New is was born in Melbourne in Australia,
Mhm.
and it's been in India for about 14 years.
Okay.
It's a boutique brand. It's a women's fashion brand uh, in the bridge to luxury segment,
Mhm.
and we retail and market women's western wear, specifically event dresses, which is our pinnacle
Mhm.
product. But other than that, we also make day wear, evening dresses, tops. We have accessories like handbags,
Mhm.
accessories like jewelry. So yes, it's a comprehensive women's brand,
Mhm.
but a bridge to luxury segment brand are known and envied for its styling and fabric
Okay.
and its designs and quality. So we have a very large following of dedicated, converted, addicted, affectionate consumers, about 300 to 400,000 of them who are our loyalists.
Mhm.
Repeats are very high in the range of 55-60%. That is both a feather in our cap and also something that we need to work on
Mhm.
to sort of grow our market base.
Okay.
So that's
And
what we are currently doing.
wonderful. And do you have your own stores, boutiques, or do you sell online?
So we have 46 stores across the country and another
Okay.
30 concessions. So total we have about 75 doors.
Okay.
These are our own stores, so we don't franchise. These are owned and operated by the organization. And we sell online as well.
Mhm.
Myntra, Ajio, Nykaa are our key partners. We also have
Mhm.
our own e-com site we call it Pinnacle
Mhm.
internally. So yes, we do a lot of business from there. We have a loyalty program as well.
Mhm.
We have about 300,000 loyalty members,
Okay.
and they're fairly active. Yes.
Wonderful. So, you have spent a lot of time in retail and a lot of time with big brands. My question to you is, what goes into building a successful brand?
I'll talk about with specifics to a retail brand.
Sure.
because in FMCG the dynamics are different. In
I
other
agree.
industries the
Yeah.
dynamics are
Yeah.
different. So in retail, I think it's very important to obviously uh, it's basic wisdom that you need to have a great product. Number one, you need to be operating in the right segment. Number so those are the given factors.
Mm,
But other than that, of course, in retail, distribution, having the right business model
mm,
are key to building a good brand. You need to be in very good locations where your consumer target consumer shops. So that's the physical distribution part of it.
mhm,
But from a quality of execution, from a delivery of customer experience, it's very critical to have great people.
mm,
I think it's one factor which is very frequently missed by many people,
mm.
that they do not focus enough on building great talent within the organization and then nurturing it.
Correct.
So that is one key thing which is actually holding back a lot of retail brands.
Mhm,
The biggest success stories, and I've worked with many brands like Adidas or Titan
mhm,
or
mm.
Levi's, their key to success has always been that other than the product, they focused on building and creating and nurturing great talent
Mm,
both in the stores, regardless of whether they were company employees or franchisee employees.
mm,
But they saw them as human capital that had to be grown,
mm,
so that and they were happy,
mm.
so that the customer experience was enhanced.
Okay.
Because in retail, India is a very different economy. It is digital, it's going digital, but at the end of the day, brick and mortar, you have to stay. It will always remain 70 to 80% of any brand business, and it will only grow. I feel. I think people are going to come back uh, very strongly back to brick and mortar. They are
Mm,
completely awash with digital now.
correct.
Nobody wants to look at a display anymore. So
Mm,
the world, all the theories and concepts have been turned over by the pandemic.
mm,
While digital is the only route to do business
mm,
in the pandemic period, but once it's over, and hopefully it will be over with it in a year or two,
mm.
people are going to come back very strongly to brick and mortar. Brick and mortar will see a revolution, and that's when you will see a fusion of the two. And therefore, building a great brand in today's scenario is about how do you fuse the two.
Mm,
How do you make omni-channel work for you?
mm,
How do you fuse digital experiences with live customer experiences?
mm,
So whether it's WhatsApp shopping, I'll give you an example. During the pandemic, you know, uh, like I said, I was talking about people. People have
mhm.
great connect with their customers,
Correct.
great customer relationships, experiences. They have customers' numbers on their phone. They can pick up the phone and say, "Ma'am, we have a new dress for you," and
Mm,
she'll just come over immediately. It's
mm,
like that.
mm.
So they used and leveraged that relationship to communicate to consumers, saying, "Ma'am, give me a WhatsApp video call. I
Correct.
will come over to your home and I'll show you all the products that you've chosen." And that's what we did during COVID
Mm,
last year during the lockdowns.
mm.
And it was a remarkable success. It was so successful that it was 18 to 20% of our business for
Wow.
almost 6 months.
Wow.
So, building a retail brand is not fancy stuff. It's about doing the basics right,
Mm,
respecting your consumer,
mm.
given that the product is great, communicating effectively, creating appealing brand stories, and being authentic as a brand rather than
Correct.
trying to be everything to everybody.
Wonderful. And you mentioned a few minutes ago that you have almost 60 to 70% repeat purchase. So, it's very
About
heartening.
55 to 60, 55
55
to
to
60%
60%.
repeat. Yes.
So, it's very heartening for me to listen to what you're saying because uh, you're confident that in next 1 year, 2 years, retail will come back. The brick and mortar stores will come back with a bang.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. Absolutely. We put, and I'll tell you why I'm saying this.
mm,
During the period, and the COVID was, I think, the litmus test for the world in a way.
mhm,
And while retail collapsed in many parts of the world, like the US and Europe, in India it flourished
mm,
actually. While because Indians, but innately are very different.
mm,
We are a very touch and feel society. We like to love and talk and go out and do things. We are a very community driven country. We are
correct.
not individualistic in that sense. We
Mm,
haven't reached that stage yet. Maybe pockets have, but
mm,
by and large, we want to just go out and whether it's melas and festivals and weddings. So that translates to retail as well. And while we did see footfalls drop by 40-50%, but the people who came back were the ones who bought a lot more. They were the pure shoppers. So earlier there were a lot of browsers. Our conversions would be 10%, 12%. Suddenly during the pandemic, when the shops opened up, our conversions shot up to 18, 20%,
okay.
22%.
Mm,
It is remarkable for a mall actually.
mm,
And so I think people will come back. they miss the experience of talking, feeling the product,
Mm.
and generally sitting down, having a coffee, and getting out of the home.
Very interesting. One more question for you on Forever New before I move to your book and your travels. This is the age, Dhruv, of the millennials, and the Gen Zs. And they are having a significant impact in the way most companies are doing business.
Yes.
How are how are the younger generation of our country impacting Forever New?
The younger generation, let's talk about Gen Z, which is
Sure.
typically
Mm.
the 20 to 24 kind of age group. They're looking for more casual product. They're looking for authenticity, great styling and design, just like millennials.
Mhm.
But the difference is that while the millennials love to dress up
Right.
and go out, Gen Z likes to dress down.
Okay.
They're more demanding in
Mm.
terms of value for money,
Mm.
and they want more authentic experiences. They want an authentic product.
Mhm.
They want value for money, and they are more discerning than millennials actually.
Okay.
They are more pragmatic in
Okay.
the sense that if a product is not serving a purpose, they won't buy it.
Mm.
They're not going to spend 9,000 rupees on a dress just because it's for revenue. They're
Mm.
going to spend 9,000 or 6,000 only because they believe that it is truly world class quality and design.
Okay.
And that's the storytelling for that has to be very different.
Mm.
It can't be like I am forever new, I am a pinnacle product, but and then expect consumers to. Millennials would typically go for that, for that shine and that polish that is there. But
Mm.
Gen Zs are more discerning. They are more pragmatic, and they are the ones to watch out for because they're going to be the next wave of big consumers for wish to luxury products for luxury as well, like we
Fantastic.
see it in China and other countries.
Fantastic. So now let's move to Dhruv, your book, Grit, Gravel, and Gear. Tell me about this book and what made you write this.
Well, Ashutosh, as we were discussing earlier, I was at the top of my career way back in 2016,
Hmm.
and but I realized that I had to go and really discover the true meaning and purpose of my life.
Hmm.
And also, I think being in sales for 25 years, I think really did me in, and I realized that I needed to bolt. My responsibilities in life are generally over. My
Hmm.
daughter was settled in the US. So I said, this is the time that I need to reclaim my own life and
Hmm.
discover the world, all the beautiful places in the world that I've been reading about. I loved Canada for its natural beauty. As a child, I was obsessed, or maybe so interested in archaeology and especially South American because we never studied South American history in school or college. I was a history student in college,
Okay.
but we never studied we Chinese. We studied a lot of other history, but never South American. Though I was always fascinated by the Mayas and the Incas and the
Mm.
Aztec
Mm.
civilization. So I said, this is what I want to do. So I
Mm.
chose this route which took me from Alaska to the southernmost part of South America. I
Wow.
wanted to go to Ushuaia and Argentina,
Mm.
and I planned it to be a 2-year journey
Mm.
because that's how it normally takes on a bicycle with all your gear on it. And I was not in a race or anything. I was just going
Mm.
to be exploring, camping, cooking myself, and things like that. So I started off from Dead Horse, which is about 400 kilometers above the Arctic Circle,
Mhm.
which is the last, you can say, the last road in the world.
Mhm.
After that, there's no road. There's only the North Pole after that. And started on a very frigid morning. And
Mm.
over the next 15,000 kilometers, I went across the Arctic to Canada to Yukon, the remotest parts of the world you can
Mhm.
imagine,
Mm.
uh, scrounging around for food and water every day. My needs were down to like where am I going to camp, cook, and eat, and where am I going to get water? That's
Mm.
it. Those are the
Mm.
only human needs that I had, as down to like prehistoric man kind of a situation.
Wow. Mm.
And for the first 3 months, and
Mm.
then of course, as things as I moved more into civilized world, I exposed myself to a lot more. And
Mm.
Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua were fascinating. Peru was like going back to the land of my rebirth.
Mm.
Some birth must have happened there for sure.
Mhm.
It's the same thing like people come to the Himalayas and find something. I
Sure.
found something in the Andes.
Right.
So when I came back, I always wanted to write a book my entire life. Actually, it was
Mm.
a dream,
Mm.
and I said this journey is worth writing about. And I had no job when I came back. It was very tough getting one. Nobody really believed that this guy will, you know, he's in a different planet altogether.
Mm.
He's a wayward cyclist. He's gone off. He left the industry and went away.
Mhm.
So I was a bit of a write-off actually.
Right.
So nobody gave me a job for almost 6 months or
Mm.
so, but didn't meet with any success. And I said, let's use this space productively and write a book. So I
Okay.
used to write 3 hours every day.
Mm.
It's a 400-page book with maps and pictures and diagrams and references.
Wow.
And I put my heart and soul into it, and it's done very well. It was
Mhm.
published by Crossword,
Mhm.
which is owned by Shopper Stop,
Yeah.
the Rager Group, and it did very well.
Mm.
It sold a lot of copies. It's got very good reviews from
Mhm.
anyone and anyone who's read the book. And I wanted to tell the story, not like my story, but the story
Mm.
of the world and what I learned from it.
Mm.
And to showcase to people that there is more to life than just our own country. And what we see of other countries is not what they really are. And there is
Mm.
a deeper culture, deeper civilizations, their histories, which we must really know about. And I wanted to also highlight a bit about the indigenous people, which I have in my book, the destruction wrought upon them, the climate change that is happening. These issues became very big ones for me
Mhm.
uh, while I was on the journey. Yes.
Incredible. Incredible. And when you were first, tell me, how did you prepare for such a grueling kind of a long journey?
Yeah, I mean, I started cycling seriously, like an adventure cycling in 2012.
Mm.
And I did Manali Khardungla with a group of people. Then I went off on a lot of solo expeditions for 3 days, 5 days, which are right in the second book, which is Away,
Mhm. Mhm.
which is also available. And I talk about those micro adventures, and that kind of chiseled me into becoming stronger and stronger physically,
Mhm. Of
in terms and mentally. I think the main
course.
thing is mental because
Yeah.
when you're mid 40s, you're pushing up a high altitude mountain. I'm not a very muscular guy. I'm a regular
Mhm.
frame chap kind of
Mhm.
fellow. But I think in my case, it was all mental.
Mhm.
And I was able to push myself to do many journeys. And I said, let me do this journey. But it took me about a year and a half to identify and then start preparing. And
Mhm.
preparation was not just physical preparation, it was
Mhm.
also intellectual in terms of blogs, routes, how to read a map, how to cook, what kind of tent to source. It took me 3 months to find the tent. It took me
Mhm.
5 months to get a bicycle which could do
Mhm.
this journey. None of it is available in India.
Mhm.
So I'd never been on an expedition for more than 2 days or 3 days on my own.
Mhm.
So here I was going into the most dangerous road in the world. With absolutely, the first 1,000 kilometers was going to be whether will I live or will I die. So it
Mhm.
was there was no guarantee that I will come back alive.
Wow.
In fact, I wrote my will. All that kind of stuff happened, and when my parents saw me off, my dad said it's like me sending my son to war because I don't know
Mhm.
whether I'll see him alive or not.
Mhm.
So that was the seriousness of the situation. So I
Mhm.
had to prepare how to survive in the wild. These are things corporate life doesn't prepare you for,
Correct.
and nobody prepares you. So I had a few adventure friends who owned a few companies, and one of them was a gentleman who owns a company called Aquaterra, and his team trained me for on a couple of trips
Mhm.
on camping, lighting fires, and things like that. Plus, I went for a trip to Alaska a year
Mhm.
before that to
Mhm.
understand what it means to be in the Arctic, in the Alpine,
Mhm.
and how to deal with bears, how to cook and camp on your own. So I learned a lot of basic survival skills from those
Mhm.
guys as well. And I got a feel of the land from where I was going to start.
Okay.
So yes, it involved a lot of preparation. I mean, every day to map out a 24,000 kilometer journey. You don't know where you're going to camp, cook, how much can you carry. Everything is linked to each other. The
Correct.
gear you're going to carry, because the weather changes across all these time zones and
Mhm.
different parts of the year. You can't carry everything with you.
Sure.
So you got your tent, you got your clothing. Are you going to carry a fleece jacket? Are you going to carry a down jacket? Are you going to have a three-layer tent? Are you going to have a two-layer tent?
Mm.
Everything comes down to weight,
I agree.
because I knew I could pull only 35, 40 kilos. I
Right.
am not such a big guy who can carry
Um,
60 kilos on his bicycle. I knew my limitation.
mm.
So I had to plan for gear also that was light, effective,
Mm.
and would keep me dry, and stuff like that. So dry and warm in a cold situation or a rainy situation. And I faced everything:
Fantastic.
blizzards. I faced hailstorms on the bicycle. Rain almost every day on the west coast in the month
Mm.
of October.
Mm.
So I never knew about a thing called the Pacific Northwest monsoon.
Mm.
I didn't know there were monsoons only in the US.
Right.
So it is, and it rains like crazy, like it does in Kerala. It's like
Um,
incredible.
Amazing.
So
And now, let me ask you to wear your corporate hat and ask you what were some of your key learnings from an expedition like this?
For corporate life or
Yeah,
generally?
for life in general.
I think it's very important to follow your heart.
Mm,
We hear about it all the time, but it's a different matter altogether to actually do it.
mm,
But it's important, and important to listen to that voice inside you,
mm.
which is telling you to do something, and you keep putting it off. So don't put it off.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, I think the quality of grit is underrated. It's
Mm,
perhaps for me the most important quality that I discovered on this trip. Uh, I believe uh, I was able to achieve something that was uh, for myself
mm,
uh, that I never thought I could do.
mhm,
So when I look back, I'm amazed at what is
mm,
possible.
mm,
And three, I think it's very important to understand that you're just a microcosm organism in the universe. And so keep your ego under control, be humble, and really truly understand that you're an insignificant part of mankind.
mm,
And but you still need to do what you need to do, which
mm,
is your karma, your dharma, and you also need to do the best you can for yourself. I
mm.
think we forget ourselves in this race of life, and some of us believe that my biggest learnings, which I share with others, is young people especially, is
Mm.
when they're confused about what they want to do, and I tell them that go back, close your eyes, and think when you were 14 years old, what did you want to do in life?
Correct.
Before you fell in love,
Mm,
before you got corrupted by distractions in life,
mm,
when your mind was young and innocent, what did you really want to do?
mm.
And you will find your answer, and then do that. Don't go after money; it will come. Don't go after comforts; they will come. There will always be struggle. So if you embrace struggle and hardship, you're going to be fine. But if
Mm.
you fight it, you'll always be unhappy.
Very
So
interesting.
it seems to work, and it worked for me finally because I did what I wanted to do.
Wonderful.
Before I was distracted by the various things in life that
I agree with you.
slightly conditions you, Ashutosh. I mean,
Sure.
we I'm not a retail corporate guy. Let me be
Mm,
honest about it. Okay,
mm,
but I made the best of it,
mm.
and I chose to excel in it. But my true heart, if you ask me, was possibly I should have been an archaeologist or something or an
Yeah.
explorer when I was 20 years
And
old.
well, you're young enough. You who knows? You can discover a new passion and
Yeah,
new
and I'm
career.
still doing that. I'm still writing about stuff and
Mm.
exploring and
Amazing.
learning how to be a better photographer. But
Fantastic.
yes, it's never too late in life,
Thank you.
and you
That I
have
agree
to
with you
balance.
completely. I
Yeah,
mean,
you have to balance everything.
yeah,
Just like you're doing. I mean, you're doing this great show. I mean, it's obviously a passion, and
I
you love
agree.
talking to people. And maybe you wanted to do it 20 years ago, but your job
I agree.
responsibilities didn't allow you to.
Absolutely. So I've got now time for two more questions, and I'm going to ask you these
Yes.
questions, which are some personal questions for you. My first question is that you've done this absolutely incredible journey, um, and you are running an interesting brand. Who or what inspires you?
I think what inspires me at different points in time are different people. Uh, for some reason, different people's journeys or experiences in life come up,
Mm,
and I read about them, and they come and they go, and they
mm,
come in at the right time. So I'm not the kind of person who would say, you know, Mahatma Gandhi inspires me. Of course, he does. He's my
mm,
idol.
mm,
Or a Nelson Mandela, but for a Martin Luther King, these are all people I keep reading about.
mm,
But I think it's the day-to-day ordinary people who tell their stories. I mean, like for example, very recently, just a month ago, I read a book by there's a mountaineer called Nimsdai Pooja, and he is the only mountaineer in the world to have climbed all the seven summits in a flat 8 months,
mm,
and he broke a record which somebody had climbed it over 8 years or
mm,
9 years. So, and he's written a book called Beyond Possible.
mm,
So, at each point in time, there is somebody who comes in as a role model, who does something amazing in life,
mm,
and who pushes you to think about the next level you can go to, or how
mm.
to tap your unlimited potential.
Right.
So various people have come in, whether it was Robin Sharma's talks in
Mm,
the mid 2000s, he influenced my life a lot, or whether it's Tony Robbins,
mm.
whatever it is, these guys are powerful talkers. Whether they live that talk or not, I don't know. But
Correct.
they infuse in you a certain way of thinking,
Mm,
and at least for me, it worked because it gave me a lot to think and ponder about. But yes, from a core value system point of view, I would say if I have to really remain calm and you know. be uh, still.
Mm.
I think I would definitely I look back at people like Martin Luther King for going after what you love and you're passionate about, or a Mahatma Gandhi for his acts of non-violence kind of thing. So those are strong internally wired concepts
Sure.
which will never go away. The
Sure.
others come and go and
I
they
agree.
influence them.
I agree.
So it's a lot like that.
Fantastic. Dhruv, we've run out of time, so I just want to say thank you very much. I mean, it's been such a
Thank
pleasure
you.
speaking to you. I just loved the way you narrated so simply this incredible 15 or 20,000 kilometer journey that you undertook, which I don't think too many people can even dream about. But
Thank you.
thank you again and good luck. And I'm sure there are more cycling trips coming up in other continents. But
Yeah,
good
I'm
luck to
sure.
you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Thank you for this lovely talk. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.